Welcome aboard the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon podcast, where we're dedicated to helping first time and experienced boat buyers find the right boat at the best price so they have years and years of boating fun because life truly is better on a boat. I want to welcome you today. I am your host, Captain Matt, and today I wanted to continue the conversation from last week talking about how to buy your first boat. So we're going to talk real basic stuff, and just to recap what we talked about last time. If you haven't listened to it, you can go back and listen to that one. But the first thing I did was try to sell you on the idea of boating, why boating is so valuable. Then we talked about, hey, making the right decisions. There's a few key choices that you have to make when buying a boat to ensure that you find the right boat. Not the cheapest boat, not the shiniest boat, not the boat that your friends tell you need to buy, but the right boat for you and the way you're gonna use it. And we talked about the 80-20 rule. What are you gonna do most of the time and who are you going to do it with most of the time. We talked about where you're going to boat, how you're going to store the boat, how you're going to pull the boat if you're a trailer boater, and all of those things are going to help you zero in on some of the right questions to ask and some of the right decisions to make so that you can zero in on the right style of boat and then go down that path and find the one that fits your budget, which is very important, of course. But most importantly, you first have to make sure it fits your lifestyle. There's a boat to fit virtually every budget. Even if you just have $100 or $200 a month that you want to invest in boating, you can probably accomplish it in most areas of the country. So let's next jump into the types of boats. So there's a great video on this that you can go to the website, um, Boat Buyers Secret Weapon.com. You can go there, boatbuyerssecretweapon.com. You can go there, and there's a video section. You can find the video called First Time Boat Buyers. And it's going to dive deep into the categories and some of the other stuff we're going to talk about now, where you actually have some images and you can see a little bit. I'll do the best I can in describing this as we talk through it. But there's six categories that I'm going to talk about in style of boat. So the first one, pontoons and tri-toons, deck boats and bow riders, wake boats, um, saltwater fishing boats, cabin boats and cruisers, and bass boats and aluminum fishing boats. So those are the main categories. I'm not going to get into sailboats. I don't have any experience in sailboats, although a lot of what we talk about will apply. But there'll be some additional things that are outside my expertise. So I won't be diving into the sailboat category. So, what I wanted to do is just give you some very basics of pros and cons of each of these, some things to think about. Maybe one of these options is something for you to consider. Maybe it's something that you were considering that the cons outweigh it, and there might be a better style for you. But this is one of the first true choices that you're going to make to go from researching boats to really start evaluating boats and actually getting into, okay, this is a boat that we actually could be close to buying, but you have to make this decision first. Pontoons and tri-toons. Advantages. One, tons and tons of space. So a pontoon or a tri-toon is going to have the aluminum tubes on it with the fence railing around the outside, usually couches, and they call it furniture, like true couches and loungers and things like that on the boat. They can have fishing setups or lounging setups or more traditional entertaining setups, a bar setup. There's so many different things that you can do with a pontoon and tri-toon. But the big key is they've got tons of space. And these days, with the tri-toons and the bigger outboard horsepower, they can be as nimble and as fast and as quick as any other boat on the market today. So they've really come a long way in their performance aspects. Another advantage is relative to the same size fiberglass boat, they tend to be much more affordable. So because of the price of aluminum, the aluminum costs and the outboard cost tend to be less than the fiberglass, which is a petroleum-based product. And as gas prices and petroleum oil prices go up, the cost of fiberglass and to build those boats goes up significantly. And the stern drive engine, which we'll talk about that a little bit later, that engine that typically is in a fiberglass boat although that pendulum is even swinging a little bit. And there's more outboards on fiberglass boats these days, but that's going to make the cost less expensive for a pontoon or tri-toon for a similar size boat. The other thing is the capacity on a, let's say, a 22-foot pontoon boat. You probably have a capacity of anywhere from, actual butts and seats of about 10, maybe 12, to actual butts and seats on a 22-foot bow rider or deck boat, maybe 6 to 8. So there's a lot more room and a lot more capacity for bigger groups of people. Disadvantages. Well, one disadvantage is it's a pontoon or tri-toon, and some people don't have the pride of ownership, and they wouldn't feel proud, they wouldn't be excited getting out on the water in their tri-toon. In their opinion, a boat is fiberglass and it's shiny and it's got a V hull and it slices through the water and it sounds a certain way. And there's a certain thing about boating is you've got to get what's going to make you excited. The reason you're buying a boat is not because you have to, because you want to, and sometimes you just want to get what you want to get. But know that there's some trade-offs at times. Other disadvantages is if you are trailering a pontoon. Trailing a pontoon is just slightly more difficult. It's not hard by any means, but it's slightly more difficult because of the way the trailer's set up. And when you do get it up on the trailer, it sits much higher. It's a much wider load. It's lighter as far as the capacity, but it is just a bigger, wider load that can be a little bit intimidating to some people. Again, like with most things in boating, experience is gonna make it easy, and you're gonna learn the boat you have. You're gonna learn it very quickly, and you're gonna learn the little tricks and techniques to handle that boat better. So don't let that if you the space is the big advantage, and if that resonates with you, then the pontoons and tri-toons can be a great option. Deck boats and bow riders. So a deck boat or a bow rider are fiberglass boats. So the shiny, when you think of a boat, in my mind, it automatically goes to a deck boat or a bow rider. Now, the difference between the two is minimal. A bow rider, if you look up in the front, has a more sharp, narrow point to it. Kind of looks like a pizza pie. Might come to even that sharp of a point up front. And a deck boat's going to be much more round. And if you look at it, it's going to be more of a square up in the bow area. A deck boat or a bow rider will typically have a stern drive engine, so our inboard outboard. The engine is inside the boat, and at the back of the boat, on the very back end, it's called a lower unit that sticks out. It's either going to be black or gray. It's either going to be a Mercruiser or a Volvo drive, and that drive is going to have a kind of a casing on it and a prop that sits off the back, and that's a stern drive or an inboard outboard or IO, are different terms you'll hear, or it could be an outboard. Those boats are great for family boats. They're very versatile, maybe a little bit more expensive on the investment, depending on the options, a little bit easier to trailer, a little bit easier to maneuver. And when you're in tight quarters, a little bit easier to pull down the road because of the way they sit lower on the bunks, and less intimidating for some people. And there's a look aspects to it. The look of a fiberglass boat, although they're trying more and more with the pontoons, you just can't get the same look with a pontoon as you can with a fiberglass boats. As of right now, that may change, but deck boats and bow riders are the boats I grew up on. And when I think of getting a boat, when I think of somebody says I'm buying a boat, that's automatically where my mind goes, is that fiberglass deck boat or bow rider. Some negatives is you're going to lose a little bit of capacity compared to a pontoon. You're going to be slightly more expensive compared to a pontoon, but very versatile. A deck boat or a bow rider, you can fish out of them. You can do water sports. You can inner tube. They, depending on the size, can handle rough water very well. They are a very, very versatile option. Great in saltwater, great in freshwater, lakes, rivers. It doesn't matter. They're very versatile boats. Now we'll move next to a wake boat. A wake boat, wake surfing boat, wake boarding boat, a water sports towboat, you may hear it called, looks, if you were to set it next to a bow rider or a deck boat, you would say, oh yeah, it's a bow rider or a deck boat. But the difference is the drive system, the way it goes through the water. And typically they'll have a V drive these days, or it might be a direct drive, which means that the engine is in the boat. It's called an inboard engine, and there's a shaft out the bottom of the boat, and then just at the transom at the very back of the boat is a big prop on that shaft. It's a an inboard boat, and that boat is designed for water sports, wake surfing, wakeboarding, water skiing. If you're focused on those areas, you may want to consider the wake boat, the tow boat, the surf boat are all names that things like Nautique and Mastercraft and Taiga, Supreme, Centurion, Supra, Malibu, Moomba are all in that category. And what makes it a surf boat, a wake boat, or a tow boat is that drive system. And then there's different options depending on the type of water sports you're going to do. These boats are decked out. They look awesome. They are fun boats. If you're into that active water sports lifestyle, that may be the direction you want to lean. Next, we move to saltwater fishing boats. So saltwater fishing boats, um, you are looking you're looking at a boat. It's typically a center console where the helm, where the driver sits, where the steering wheel is, all the controls are in the center of the boat, and you kind of walk around the outside. There could be a T-top on it that has a little bit of a shade cover, or it could be open. These boats are typically found at the coast. You're seeing them more and more inland these days in inland lakes, larger bodies of water. They're putting double, triple, quad engine setup on them, and they've got lots of speed. You can get offshore, you can get to your fishing spot, you can maneuver incredibly well with them. They also may be a what's called a bay boat. It's a center console boat that is very shallow, can get into really shallow water, into skinny water, where you can get into the fishing spots in some of the creeks on the coast and then the intercoastal waterway, as well as dual consoles. What makes a boat that saltwater fishing setup is typically the upholstery is not going to be as comfortable is not the word, but it's not going to be as luxurious. It's going to be more focused on easy to maintain. Cushions will snap out, easy to spray down, get that salt cleaned off on the boat, and they're easier to maintain in that saltwater environment. These are boats that are designed to be in the ocean, to be in that saltwater environment, and that is a key aspect. A lot of them are set up for fishing, doing some fishing, whether it's offshore with outriggers, but rod holders, rod storage, things like that. Head compartments if you're going offshore on some of the bigger models, but those can be a great option if you live at the coast, if you're into that style of fishing. And you can also do some water sports behind them. They're becoming very versatile, and the bigger ones are going to be as luxurious as anything that you're going to find on the market. But the key is that they're designed to be in that saltwater and that coastal environment. Cabin boats and cruisers. So again, the cabin boats and cruisers, a very specific niche. If you're looking to overnight on your boat, you want that cabin area to get down out of the sun, maybe have some amenities, a microwave, sleeping quarters, likely a head, a galley area, and just a place, maybe air conditioning, maybe generator. I like to say a condo on the water, 24 to as big as you want to go, yacht size. You have got a living quarters on the boat. Now, on the negative side with the cruisers, you give up half the boat to interior space, so you don't have that exterior space when you're bringing guests on board, depending on the size of the boat. But you don't have that bow area for people to sit. And you give that up. So you have to decide, like we said with that 80/20, is if overnighting and having a condo on the water is appealing to you, hey, maybe it is something that you're willing to give up and you're not going to put 6, 8, 10 people on the boat. Great. Then that could be a great option for you for a mid-sized cruiser. But again, as you get bigger and bigger, the capacity widens significantly. And when you're looking 30, 40, 50, 60 feet, you can get plenty of folks on board, but you still have that entertaining area, that condo on the water, in the cabin boats and the cruisers. And then bass boats and aluminum fishing boats. If you're doing freshwater fishing, and that's going to be 80% of what you do, that's going to be the direction you're probably steering towards. And what you give up is you give up some of that family-friendly space, and sometimes because it's geared more toward fishing. Although on some of the boats you can still do that type of thing. So again, that's it's much easier to do when you're looking at images and if you're really in the early stages. But let's look at the next one, new versus used. This is a decision that virtually everybody has to make. Are we going to go get a brand new boat with full warranty, not a ding or a scratch on it, buy it from a dealer, have that relationship with the dealer, and know that for the first 3 to 5 years or longer, that everything's taken care of? The warranty on boats typically 3 years or so for the engine. Sometimes it may go to five. A few engine manufacturers are stretching it out as they get more and more efficient and reliable. Um, the boat is typically going to have a 10-year warranty on the structure of the boat, and the components are all going to vary. But when you invest in that boat, that your monthly amount or the upfront cost that you spend on that boat is going to be what it's going to be. And then you have fuel and you have basic maintenance, which is going to be very, very minimal on a new boat. Figure $300 to $500 per engine, depending on exactly the engine that you have in there. If you've got two engines, three engines, four engines, it's going to go up, obviously, to maintain each of them. But that's going to be to do basic maintenance. That's gonna cover you there. On the flip side, it's going to be more expensive. Obviously, you're going to take all that depreciation that typically comes early in the first 5 years of boat ownership life, and so that's something to consider if the budget is a key aspect for you. On the pre-owned side, listen, there's going to be some dings, there's going to be some scratches on it, that somebody's going to have used the head before you. All of those things are what you give up for that saving of the money. So here's a couple of things I will recommend if you're looking at new versus pre-owned. If you're looking at new, you still need to make sure that you're buying the right style of boat with the right options. You want to make sure that you're getting the best deal. You're not overpaying for that boat. If you're looking pre-owned, the biggest thing is you're going to want to make sure that you're not buying somebody else's headache. You're not buying a boat that has unknown issues to you, that could cause a problem. And there'll be a future podcast where we strictly dive into used boats and what you need to do, how you need to look at them, where you need to look in the boat for common major issues, some tools that you can use to make sure that you're limiting the risk as much as possible so that you have a boating fun for years and years to come. I'm a big believer for a lot of people, especially first time boat buyers. A used boat is a great way to go. Um, for a lot of people, it's just a smart thing to do. Uh, but here's the thing: there's a lot more risk, there's a lot more unknown, there's a lot more mistakes that can be made on the used side. And here's why I caution you, because if you get the wrong boat, if you get a boat that's nothing but a bucket of trouble for you, you are going to hate the boating lifestyle and you're going to get out of it. And you're going to be one of those people that say, don't buy a boat, don't waste your time, they're nothing but trouble. And it's because you made a mistake. There was something that got by you, uh, that that could have been fixed, and that's why I'm doing this podcast. So keep digging into these podcasts and look for the ones that match your situation, and I can promise you it will really reduce the chance of making a mistake. And then with some of the tools also that I provide, you can really make sure that you get the right boat at the right price, and be glad to be a part of that for you. So new versus used, it's kind of a personal choice. It could be somewhat of a budget choice, but there are pluses and minuses to each. When you look at those outboards, stern drives, and inboards. So we talked a little bit about the outboards. The big engine sits on the back. It's about 5, 6 feet tall, and it hangs off the back of the boat. The stern drive, the engine is in the boat, and then you've got a drive that sticks off the back, and it's usually black or gray, and it's got a prop on the back there. That's a stern drive, an IO, or an inboard outboard. Typically, you're going to find those in the bow riders and the deck boats. If it's not an outboard, the inboard we talked about is on the tow boats, is on the wake surf, the wake board boats. The engine is inside the boat. There's a shaft that comes out the bottom, and there's a big prop on the end of it, and that is mainly for water sports. You'll see some of those on some of the bigger yachts and sport yachts, with the diesel engines, and some of those may be inboards as well. But most of those are going to be in the 40-foot plus category, maybe 37, 35, 40 plus are going to have those inboards as well as all of the towboats. Pluses and minuses. The outboard. The pluses of the outboard: very efficient, very economical to run, very easy, simple maintenance, especially on the newer ones. The winterization process is minimal, and pretty simple. There's oil changes, there's impeller changes, and that's really about it for most of them over the life of it. They're very simple. The stern drives, the IOs, those need to be winterized, a little bit more expensive to maintain them because there's a little bit more to do with them, especially in the colder, freezing climates. Once you get once you get in the point where it's going to freeze in the wintertime, those are going to be a little bit more expensive. But the advantages on the deck boats and the fiberglass boats is the lower unit is below the swim platform and you have easy access to the water, whereas the outboard that hangs right off the back of the boat, and on the stern of the boat you don't have as easy of access to the water. When you look at twins and triples and quads, it can cut off that access to the water considerably on the back of the boat. So again, it goes to how are you using the boat, who are you using it with, and that will help gear you towards the outboard or the stern drive or the inboard. Size of the boat. It comes down to where you're boating, what your budget is, and how you're gonna store the boat. All of those things will add up to the size, but you're typically not going to say I have to have a 24-foot boat. There may be constraints on your dock size or what you can pull with your vehicle or where you're going to store it. But typically, there's going to be a range of boats that's going to be suitable for you: an 18 to 20 footer, a 26 to 30 footer, and you're going to want to, as you're shopping, you're going to want to get aboard a 22 footer and a 24 footer and a 26 footer and decide, okay, yeah, this feels like the right size for the dollar amount for the budget. This is where we want to be, knowing that that size is somewhat, it's not set in stone, but just whatever feels right to you. This feels like a size I can handle. This feels like a size that's going to allow us to all sit comfortably and have the room. This feels like a size that's right for us. The rougher the water that you operate in, typically the bigger boat that's going to be required to make it enjoyable on a busy Saturday and Sunday afternoon in May and June, July, August. So you want to think about those things, and you may want to, as we get down to the next part, um, get out on the water and experience how that boat handles the rougher water on a sea trial or a demo. That's going to be a great way to know if it's the right size for you. Don't just go and do a quick loop and come back to the dock. Actually run that boat, go through some chop. How does it handle it? How does it feel for you? And is it comfortable with the people on board? Does it handle the water properly? Does it maneuver the way you had hoped it would? Do you feel comfortable behind the wheel driving it? And make sure that if you're going to operate the boat and you're the main operator, that you get behind the wheel and you actually run that boat. So as you're, I'll come back to the demo and the sea trial a little bit, but another area that you want to consider is you're shopping for the boat. The whole process of shopping, you're going to do a lot of it online, and you're going to be researching. You're going to see what other people have to say. You're going to look at boats, and I like the aesthetics of this. I like the looks of it. It looks sharp. I like the layout, but there's nothing better than actually stepping on board the boat, especially if you're a first-time boat buyer. So that means going to dealerships. Stepping aboard the this manufacturer and that manufacturer and the other manufacturer, and that may require going to multiple dealerships. If you're buying new, especially, that relationship with the dealer is important. It can also often be more important than the actual manufacturer that you buy. That the dealership is a rock solid dealership. So if you're going back and forth between two comparable boats that are of about the same price range, same quality, you like them equally, my default is going to be going to which dealer is going to support me better. Which dealer do I feel most comfortable with? Which dealer is most convenient to where I'm going to be boating? Because that dealer relationship, especially for a first-time boat owner, it can be critical in making it more enjoyable. Boat shows. A boat show is another Great time to board a bunch of different boats. And if you're trying to decide pontoon or deck boat, you go sit and you get a sense of it. Man, we really like the idea of overnighting and having a condo on the water, but we also feel like we're going to have, a large groups of people out with us sometimes. Well, go sit down in the cabin of a cruiser for, for half hour, and just, are you going to enjoy it? You're going to feel cooped up, or is, man, this, I love it. This feels awesome. I can imagine us out on the water, and doing that in a boat show environment, in a dealer environment, is great. The other thing that you'll want to do is look at, even if you're almost certain you're going to go new, look at used boats. See what the price points are on the used boats of different manufacturers. That will tell you, kind of give you a hint to what your resale value will look like. Well, man, I see this 2014 model is this much, and this 2014 model is that much. But when I look at them new, man, this one took a way bigger hit to the value of it, the depreciation of it, and that may weigh into it if you're looking at man, they're equal in every other way, but that piece, that resale value, is what could tip you over. So I always encourage you to look at both new and used, even if you're 100% on going used. You're like, man, our budget isn't going to allow us to go new. Still look at new and get a sense of that boat, what it looked like brand new, and the dealer relationship, because you may still have a relationship with the dealer if you go a used boat from a dealer. If you go private seller and you buy from somebody out of the driveway, or a broker, so a yacht broker or a boat broker, you still may go back to that dealer that sells that manufacturer if you need parts, if you need service. So there still could be a relationship with that dealer, and that could impact you. It's a smart thing to at least be aware of, instead of just buying a boat from a private seller and then being like, oh well, shoot, there's nowhere around here to get serviced on that style of boat or that type of engine, and you could get yourself in a tough situation that will haunt you down the line. Okay, back to the sea trial and the demo. It is 100%, especially for a first time boat owner. You absolutely must get out and run that boat on the water before you buy it. You're going to want to go through all the systems. You're going to, if it's a used boat, you're going to want to know what works and what doesn't. Because I promise you, on every used boat, there's something that's not right. Whether it's a scratch or a ding or a cut in the upholstery, or something's not working, or something got a latch got broken, or a cup holder got blew out. There's going to be something, and I just want you to be aware of it. I don't want you to say I'm not buying the boat because of that, but I want you to be aware of it for the price that you're paying in the boat. That, okay, I'm okay that the stereo doesn't work. I can replace that with a, couple $100, or I was going to put a, 1,000, 5,000 into the stereo system anyway. I don't care because I'm going to redo it all, but I want you to be aware of it, what working and what isn't. So when you do your sea trial, when you take that boat out, you're going to run that boat for more than just a loop around. You want to get through some chop. You want to run it at wide open throttle for a little bit. How does it sound? How does it feel? You're going to want to stop, and you're going to want to get up on plane. How does it get up on plane? That means from a dead standstill to getting up on top of the water. And is there a lot of, does it rise up out of the water with the bow? And it really takes a long, long time to get that bow down and get moving. Or does it jump right out and it's very quick? Is it overpowered or underpowered? And you typically want to do that with the group of people that will be with you on the boat, because a boat's going to perform very different with 8 people on the boat than with two. So there's often, one of the big mistakes that happens is people buy a boat that's underpowered. Very, very seldom do they overpower a boat, because you can always cut the throttle back and you don't have to use all of the horsepower, right? But if you underpower a boat, it's you're going to be kicking yourself every time you're in a situation where you're trying to get up and going, and it just doesn't get on plane quickly, or it doesn't reach the speeds that you need to reach it to do the water sports you want to do, or to do whatever it is. So you can find these things out when you're out on the water, with the people that you're going to be boating with. Once you get through that, then you go into finalizing the purchase. I always encourage, whether you're buying a new boat from a dealer, whether you're using a professional yacht broker or boat broker, or whether you're buying from a private seller out of the driveway on Craigslist or Boat Trader or whatever, you want to make sure that everything that's agreed to, you know it's crystal clear. If there's something that's broken, if something's not working right on the boat during the sea trial or the demo, okay, the stereo's not working. I understand that, and it's fine. We're not going to address it. I believe that it's a fair price, even though that's not working. Or it's, hey, for this price, I expect that stereo to be working properly. And how's it going to happen? Who's going to pay for it? And when is it going to be fixed? When can I expect that to be taken care of? So that you're not 6 months down the line and you're still expecting the dealer to take care of that, the broker to take care of that, the seller to take care of it. You know exactly what's happening and you're comfortable with the total package. Sometimes you can get in a big hurry, especially if you're buying a boat in the spring or summer, and you're like, I just want to get on the water. We'll deal with that later. And then there's misunderstandings, there's hurt feelings, there's anger and frustration, and let's just avoid all that by having those conversations just straight up, direct, without the emotion of, okay, this is a problem. It's known. This is how we're going to handle it. This is who's going to pay for it, and this is when it's going to be completed. And you'll know you're not signing anything. You're not handed over any money until that's resolved, and preferably written down on paper so that you've got it and everybody is aware of it, and there'll be no misunderstandings 2 weeks from now when you go back and you say, but I thought you were going to, and you can just avoid all of that. And then finally, the last piece is, especially as first time boaters, but even experienced boaters, a new boat is going to have different electronics. It's going to have different functionality. It's going to have different handling characteristics. So I'm going to encourage you to get out of the water. And if you buy it from a dealer, somebody from that dealership or the broker, the yacht broker or boat broker, should train you on that boat. If you're buying from a private seller, you should be able to find somebody that can train you on how to operate the boat effectively and safely. Give you some tricks and tips and some tactics that's going to make it more fun and safer right out of the gate. Maybe backing the boat down the ramp, and how do you operate at the boat ramp? What are some things that you can do to make it easier to be more courteous and more polite to your fellow boaters? How do you handle the boat around the docks and in close quarters? When I was selling boats personally, I would spend 2 to 4 hours with a first time boater. And within 2 hours, I could get almost everybody to like 80%. And the rest is just up to you to practice and to get more experience and more exposure and get in different situations with wind and currents, and different environments. But once you get to that 80%, you are very comfortable, and you are ready to get out of that water and be safe with you and your family and your friends. If you can't get that from the dealer or the broker, there's resources online. I'm working on some resources for the website at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com. So there's some resources that I'm working on there. They're not there yet, but you can check back and look for them there. And then there's also the Power Squadron, retired Coast Guard. There's several different ways that you can get training, and look in your local boating magazines, call local dealers, and they may have a resource for you, to help you get over that. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what you need to know. Look for future podcasts where we go deeper into each of these areas: the new and used, the demo and the sea trial. We're definitely going to drive deeper on how to buy a pontoon or a tri-toon, how to buy a deck boat or bow rider, and we're going to dive deep into each of these categories because each one's going to have some different areas that are going to be valuable for you to look at, to avoid those issues. So that's it. I appreciate you joining us here. So we're going to go ahead and get this podcast tied up to the docks, and we'll be back next week with another informative and fun episode. But again, remember, if you're in the market for a boat, you can check out additional resources at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com. It will help support this podcast, and the vendors have been confirmed by us as top-notch providers. So we appreciate the support there as we just give this information away, totally unbiased, not trying to sell you any particular boat, any manufacturer, steer you any dealer, just to give you good, solid information. And one of the best ways to make a donation to support this podcast, if you found it valuable, um, is I will give you the absolute best negotiations technique when buying your next boat that will guarantee you get the absolute best deal. So I'll give you that for a donation. You decide how much that's going to be worth to you, and that's the amount that you donate. It's one way we cover the cost of putting this podcast together. You can go to boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/best deal to get started to get access to that question. Until next time, remember, life is better on a boat. Take care, everybody.